Welcome back to Chewing the Crust. This is the podcast where we sit down with people who've been through the tough stuff in life and hear what they've learned along the way. Today's guest has a story that's raw, powerful, and full of lessons for us all. Jasonstone grew up in Idaho, spent 20 years in the Navy submarine service, and went on to become an expert in nuclear technology and a college professor. But at 52, he was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. Instead of stepping back, Jason has thrown himself into research, diet, and community, sharing his journey on YouTube to help others catch their cancer early and fight back. And before we get into conversation, as regular viewers and listeners will know, I will have a little introductory poem for you, Jason. So here we go. No blushing. From ocean's depth to classroom light, he fought with courage, shared his fight. Through pain, through storms, he stands to say, get checked, live longer, don't delay. So, Jasonstone, welcome to Chewing the Crust.
Holy crap, that was cool. That was amazing. I like that. I
I'm
like
glad
that.
you liked it.
Very well done. Very nice. Thanks for having me on.
No, it's great. It's really, really nice to have you. As soon as I saw your story, I thought you were a perfect example of the people that I like to speak to because you have been through difficulty and are going through difficulty, but you have selflessly gone on to try and help others. And we'll get into it, but I really, really respect that of you and find it inspiring. So,
Well, thank you. I think we're kind of brothers in that sense. A lot of what you do is advocacy for, self-help, mental health, sharing all these people's stories, doing these interviews, digging deep into the what's going on. Yeah.
thank you. I'm not very good at taking praise, but that's very kind of you. Thank you. I need to be more American about it. Yeehaw. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I always like to do with these chats, and I think it usually is a great way of starting the chat to learn more about you, Jason, is you grew up in Pocatello, Idaho. Is that correct? Is that how you say it?
Pocatello.
Was that? I was looking at a map this morning. What a wonderful place.
It is. I love it.
It's like, I mean, it's obviously very inland. It's not in the center of the US, but it's a good third of the way across, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then it looks like you've got some beautiful lakes nearby that are almost like the seaside.
It's a lot of good lakes. It's a unique spot because it's southern Idaho is a big band called the Snake River Basin, which is like a desert plain. So it's sagebrush and rocks. But Pocatello is tucked up into where the mountains really start. So it's tucked up into a valley, and you've got you're within a half hour of a half a dozen ski resorts. You're within a half hour of a couple lakes. You're within a half hour of a couple different rivers. You're a half hour away from camping, fishing, whatever you want to do.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, that's right up my street. And presumably you get really cold, snowy winters and really hot,
Oh, yeah.
lovely summers as well.
Yep, very much so. Very
Fabulous. Yeah,
much
no,
so.
I was looking at those maps, I was taken, and it was the true. I mean, it's like you imagine the settlers traveling along that area and thinking, oh, this is a nice place to stop.
Yep. Yep,
Yeah.
and then
And
we have the pioneers, of course, in America, right? The pioneers that moved across the country and traveled by wagon and foot, and there's places right close by where you can go still see the wagon tracks in the woods and stuff and see where the path that they traveled.
So, tell me what life for a young man in Pocatello, how can I say it? Pocatello, Idaho.
It's a hard O.
You said it.
O, like poke.
Oh, Pocatello, right? Okay,
There you
Pocatello,
go. Nice.
Idaho. What was that like? Because I mean, it sounds like you've got everything a boy could ever need on your doorstep.
Yeah, I grew up with a very outdoorsy family, especially on my dad's side. My grandparents lived in a place called Soda Springs, Idaho, and we spent a lot of weekends just going over there to go camping and fishing and hunting. That was a lot of that.
Do you have bears and wolves?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
You see bears, and I never really saw a wolf growing up. I didn't see a wolf
Is it more
until I opened it.
coyotes that you would see?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'd go hunt coyotes because, they're considered, vermin or whatever, and you can get,
A nuisance.
as a kid, we used to get, $5 a pelt for the $5 for a coyote pelt. So we'd go,
Wow.
like, cross-country skiing in the wintertime and have a rifle slung across our back in case we saw a coyote so we can pick up $5.
Wow. Because I love the outdoors and I used to have a bushcraft business when I was younger. But in the UK, you're never more than sort of a mile away from a property, really. I mean, this is in Scotland and where you might be a bit like maybe 10 miles at the most, but you're never really far. You can never find true wilderness. And one of the things that I am truly, in fact, it's the only thing that I know of that I'm truly afraid of is wolves. But I love wildlife and I would love to go to Canada or Idaho and sit somewhere where you can hear them howling at the night. Now, what the thing is, I would cry and probably wet my pants, but I would love to hear it. So, do you have any tales from your youth of the outdoors that, where you went out and did something and you perhaps didn't come back and tell your parents what had happened?
Ooh, where I didn't tell them what happened.
Yeah, because there was all sorts I got up to when I didn't tell my mum because I nearly died or something.
The there was a stupid story that I told them, but I wasn't believed. I was hanging out. It was late at night with my good friend Shane Rogers, and he was a little bit of a troublemaker, but I was a good kid. We were out in my dad's truck, and we were going up in the mountains because that's what you do. You just go up in the mountains and cause trouble, whatever. And there was this thing in the road, so we stopped the truck, got out to look, and it was this porcupine. It was the biggest porcupine I had ever seen in my life. And so we got out of this truck on this hill and walked up the road, so the headlights were on the porcupine to look at this porcupine. And so the headlights are shining on this porcupine, and we're looking at this stupid porcupine with the truck on the road behind us, the slanted road, and pretty quick the headlights start to just kind of back away. They were like, and then they sweep a little bit, and we look back, and I never put the parking brake on the truck, and it rolled down into like a 20-foot ditch, rolled back into this ditch and on its side. Now, my dad was a police officer in Pocatello, Idaho. I did not want to call my dad. I did not. I didn't want that to be, yeah. So I called a friend and he came up there and he looked at that and I said, "You have a truck. Let's get this thing out of the ditch." And he looked down that 20-foot bank and he's like, this isn't happening. Give me we're calling your dad.
So, I did notice in that story that you referred to the stupid porcupine. To be fair, it wasn't the porcupine's fault in any way, shape, or form, and I think that's rather unpleasant of you.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. But if it hadn't been there,
It must have been big, but
it was massive. I'd never seen a porcupine that big, and you see all kinds of wildlife growing up in Idaho, everything. And yeah,
so if you're a hunter and you live in the middle of nowhere, where do you stand on Bigfoot?
I think if Bigfoot was real, even I've seen how vast our wilderness is. There is just thousands of acres of untouched land, right? Even with that, we would have known. However, I don't know if you noticed or caught that my master's degree is in screenwriting.
Oh, I didn't notice that. No.
Yeah, so I went to school to learn how to write film, and
Nice.
I am working on a script for a story about a Bigfoot. And the idea, it was came up on a camping trip to Idaho. We were going up to go fishing with my two kids, and we were talking about Bigfoot. They were asking questions and this and that. Like, let's spitball a story here. So we created some characters, and the idea is Bigfoot is real, but the reason we don't come across them all the time is because they're aliens. And
Mm.
they come down and then the Forest Service, the National Park Service actually protects them while they're here. So when you see like a trail closed for hantavirus warning or something, That's because Bigfoot are in the area. They're visiting for some
Brilliant.
reason. So I
And
don't
that's
know.
why there's no skeletons.
That's why there's no skeletons. That's why they're not. There's no evidence. They just come to visit, and
Well, if you need an over-enthusiastic ginger Brit in the story who is frightened of wolves but wants to hear them and wets his pants, I've got a great character idea for you.
I might do that. That'd be awesome.
And you have to include the porcupine tail as well.
Yeah, yeah.
See, I'm sure you can. In fact, that could even be a Bigfoot body laid there, and then when the truck went down, the body disappeared.
There's a porcupine.
Yeah. So, do you think your outdoorsy lifestyle influenced your next career choice then?
I think it allowed me to be, I guess, not brave, but not nervous about trying new things, because leaving Pocatello, Idaho to go join the Navy and travel the world, especially on submarines, was a huge shift. But I think being adventurous, it helped make me more adventurous.
So you're 17, which is very young, and you decided to join the Navy. Was that in? I mean, was it a flip thing? Were the Navy in town and said, "Do you want to come with us?" Or did you tell your parents? What went on?
Oh, it was a complete accident. So, because I didn't want to join the Navy at first, I grew up learning about airplanes and I loved airplanes and I wanted to fly and I wanted to be around airplanes. And so, like 8 or 9 years old on, my goal was to join the Air Force. And I remember walking down, so the recruiting station was in the mall, and I was walking down the hallway, and I went back to they had all the services right there in this hall in their own doors, and that back one was the Air Force, and it had a sign that said closed for the day. I'm like, all right. I turn around, I'm walking back, and there was a guy in a white uniform with a big smile on his face. And he says, "How can I help you?" "I don't think you can. I want to join the Air Force." He goes, "Oh, why would you want to do that?" "Well, I want to fly. I want to be around airplanes." He goes, "Well, the Navy has more airplanes and the Navy has better pilots." And he started his pitch. And I was naive. Man, I was naive. I bought everything hook, line, and sinker. And he's like, "Just come in and take this test and then take this test." And I passed this test and then I passed the next test. And pretty quick, he'd convinced me that I needed to go into the nuclear power program on submarines when my goal was to join the Air Force and fly. So I did.
I don't know if it's the same over there, but in the UK, there's quite a divide between the Army and Navy and the Air Force. The Air Force are looked at as being like the posh.
Yes.
Like, is that the same in the US?
Same, exact same. Yep.
Like the silver fed with the silver spoon, and the Navy and the Army are a bit more grunty and grr, you know.
Yep, very much so. We have the same perspective.
Because I know that there will be a limit to what you can say with regard to being a submariner, but I'm very interested in the lifestyle that must have afforded you. There must be so many things that you took for granted that are desperately interesting about living under the water like that.
Like sunlight,
Exactly.
fresh sunlight,
Exactly.
fresh air. Like, I'm gonna go live under the water for 2 months with no sunlight, no fresh air. We're making our own air out of seawater. We're recirculating old air and no sunlight. Yeah, and it turns out, as we get into it later, the one of the factors that increases risk for cancers, especially prostate cancer, is lack of sunlight.
Wow.
Yep.
That's interesting. And is there a high proportion of submariners finding themselves in the situation then?
Yep. The VA came out a couple years ago with a thing called the PACT Act. And this PACT Act had a list of conditions which it says we admit that these conditions cause prostate cancer. And so if you are one of these, we will help pay for your support and everything, your care. And one of those was submarine service.
Wow.
They have since taken it back down, but it was on there. And that's how I got into the care system.
Right. Because that is a question I'd like to ask you about when we get there, because healthcare out there is not a cheap thing, is it?
It's no, it's not, and it's so frustrating. I did an interview, as you know, with Richard Gow from Corsica, who was from the
Mm.
UK, and he shared with me what healthcare in France is like, and I'm just blown away that you mean there's a government that, while it does collect money from taxes, actually uses it to help the people and not to make billionaires bigger billionaires. I
Yeah,
got some
no,
political frustrations right now.
yeah, no, I can understand that. Whilst I try to avoid them, I do understand it for sure. And yeah, it's not an easy. I mean, I think whether you have strong opinions on the right or the left at the moment, I think what we do find in this day and age is that when there's no money around, it drives division, and division just becomes more extreme. And I certainly in my lifetime, I'm 46, and I've never seen the mess that we're in at the moment from an ability to just get on with each other, and how it reverberates within families and in offices and on the street. It's just so devastating. But yeah,
Yep.
I try to steer clear of it, and I think part of doing this sort of stuff and watching what you do, just spreading the good word for the right reasons to anybody who might just temper their opinions because of it. That's all we can do as lay people, I think.
Yep.
So
Very
yeah.
much so.
How were you underwater for like 2 months at a time then?
Yeah, it depends. I was on a couple of different types of submarines. So one type of submarine, the first type I was on the USS Ohio for 6.5 years, and she was a ballistic missile submarine. And so our mission carried 24 ICBMs. If one of those uh, ballistic missile submarines with 24 ICBMs on it went out into the middle of the ocean and declared itself its own country, it would be the third most powerful nuclear armed country in the world. That's
Christ.
how much power one of those has. It only behind Russia and the UK. And that's so one submarine has almost as much nuclear power as the UK and Russia, right?
That is scary.
And so our mission is to go out and just hide. And so we would just submerge in some pocket of water somewhere. And we were supposed to just stay underwater for a couple months and just be there just in case.
And the people I've spoken to who've done things like that have said there are some quite hairy situations that arise when you know there are other people around, and you can feel the pings, and everybody's because you have to stay quiet as well, don't you, within the boat?
Oh, yeah. Yep. There's how much can I say about this? Later, I was on a fast attack submarine, and those get out and do the hairy stuff.
Yeah.
They do the sketchy things.
I don't want to get you into trouble. Let's
Yeah,
not go down the road.
there was. I'll say that there was an issue where there was a P-3 Orion that had hit another airplane over Chinese airspace and had to emergency land on an island, the Hainan, Hainan, and the Chinese government had taken the American crew hostage and was
Mm.
trying to just, get this electronic gear off this surveillance airplane because that's valuable intel, right? And so while they were holding the Americans hostage, there were plans in place to try and get them back. And so, yeah, there may have been a submarine involved in one of those plans. They ended up releasing the hostages, so they didn't have to do their thing. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
I think is it the Tom Hanks did a movie recently, didn't he, where you could hear well, I think he was on a ship, but there was the submariners going round, and you could hear the boats, and
Oh, the Wolf.
I can't remember which one it is, but it's
Yeah, it was such a well done movie too.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
he's
Well,
he's
everything he touches is brilliant.
he's bringing the new captain on. He's bringing the what do they call it? The cargo ships and stuff across the
That's right.
Atlantic,
Yeah,
and the German U-boats kept picking them off. And so he's
yeah.
got to get them across and through that successfully, and he does. And
That's
there's that one specific U-boat captain that taunts him, and that was a well done movie.
yeah. But it does it. A friend of mine lives in the Cayman Islands, and he's a diving instructor. And one of the jokey things that a lot of the diving instructors talk about out there is that certain tourists who are not this, we would say, not the sharpest tools in the box, have on a number of occasions asked, "Can you swim under the island?" Now, obviously, that's ridiculous. However, the thing that always does interest me is that you can dive in a submarine under the North Pole, and that really intrigues me. Did you do that?
This I did not. I always wanted to do there was, every once in a while they'd send a submarine up there to do the ice pack and stuff and do the North Pole trip, and I was never on a submarine that got to do that, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
'Cause that's just an ice pack. So
Yeah.
they go up there and, the conning tower that sticks up off the body of the submarine has, some planes on it, and those planes on certain submarines turn vertical so that they can break up through the ice. Yeah, so not all submarines were built to do that, and then later they took the planes off of the conning tower and put them up on the bow of the submarine so that the conning tower could just come up through the ice,
Nice.
and it was a strengthened conning tower and stuff. So there were some submarines there were submarines built for it and submarines that couldn't do it. But everything we ate was pretty much canned after the first 2 weeks.
Oh dear.
They line the passageway with those number 10 cans, and they line, the engine room, the walkways, all these places are full of number 10 cans. And then as you eat is you're serving food and the crew's eating every day and you're getting a week into it, 2 weeks into it, 3 weeks into it, those cans start disappearing and then you can see the walkway again.
Wow.
But you lose about that much height when you're walking down the passageway for those first few weeks.
I imagine those bunks are quite good fun to sleep in when you're all going on to beans and canned meat for a little while.
Man, they're only 6 feet long and I'm 6'4",
Wow.
and or I was before my cancer. And then now I'm 6'3", but that's a different story. Yeah, 6'4" when I was on the submarine, and the bunks were only 6 foot. They're only so wide,
Oh,
and they're stacked 3 high, so you only have so much space above you. It was fun.
yeah. Yeah, 20 years of that, I think. No thanks. And then you moved on to, did you connect? Because you went into teaching nuclear technology, is that right?
Well, so for the nuclear technology things, actually at the college is only recent. I
Oh.
started teaching as an adjunct professor in 2019, and I recently took a job. In fact, I haven't even officially started my new job. I start September 2nd as the assistant professor and director of nuclear technology at Columbia Basin College. So for that time in between 2009 when I retired from the Navy and now, I've been in commercial nuclear. So for a number of years, I worked out in Minnesota, out in Monticello, Minnesota nuclear power plant, and I ran license programs there. And then I moved out here to the desert area of Washington and ran the license program here for a number of years till recently.
Wow. I did environmental science at university, and one of my lecturers was very into energy and also marine law and things like that. And he used to absolutely go on all the time about how clean an energy nuclear truly is and how we all need to adopt it and we need to adopt it soon and blah, blah, blah. I presume that's how you feel about that as well.
Well, I do recognize that it does have challenges, right? I mean, we can make dirty water. We do have nuclear waste. I mean, we've changed the fuel out and we're not really doing anything with that, right? We take the fuel out every 2 years, we do a refueling outage. We change out about 1/3 of the core and we take
Mm.
those fuel rods and we put them into a big swimming pool and we put them in the swimming pool for 8 to 10 years. And then after they've decayed away, the heat's gone down, then we take them out, we put them in these concrete stainless steel casks, and then they just sit on a pad at the nuclear power plant. So all the 90 something nuclear power plants across the US have these pads where nuclear waste is just stored in these containers right at the
Mm.
site. And they haven't done anything to deal with that. And we have to deal with that someday. So there's a downside, right?
Mm.
We're building waste that we're not dealing with. And, you could only go through the dishes in your kitchen so long before you have to wash the dishes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you wouldn't. I mean, the way the world is, everybody's so money orientated. It must be difficult to find a use for that waste. Otherwise, it would have been found.
Well, the UK and France actually have a solution, but America, we're behind. So
Mhm.
you're allowed, and especially in France, to reburn your fuel. It's called MOX reactors. And what they do, it ends up turning the fuel into weapons grade fissile material, right? Which is why
I
we
see.
aren't allowed to do that in the US. But you get all, why not reburn the fuel? Why not use it for good things? Why not? Just because it can be used for bad doesn't mean you have to use it for bad.
No.
So, yeah, we're, as in many things, we're a little behind. We're more behind than
Yeah,
people realize.
I think the environment in the US is not the first consideration in a lot of things, is it? It's quite
No.
down the list, unfortunately.
Yep.
So, how did you feel when you got to the end of your career within the military then? Because that's a major life pivot, isn't it? Getting to
Yeah.
the end of that institution.
It was. I mean, that framed my life from the time I was 17 for 20 years, 10 months, and 20 days. And it was all I really knew. I got into the rhythm of, okay, I'm going to go do shore duty for 3 years. I'm going to go to this submarine for 3 years. I'm going to go to this submarine for 3 years. And you build the brotherhood with the people you work with. You establish relationships and your goals are pretty set. Like, do your job, be a good person, and, try and get promoted. And
And to some extent, I imagine your decisions are made for you as well. You don't really have a lot to decide upon, do you? You don't, even your uniform, everything, it stays the same. Do this, go there, do that, and you just do
yeah,
your job to do that, presumably.
live here. Like, I didn't get, if I wanted to live off base or outside of housing, I could do that. But I just lived in the housing. I just went with, hey, you can live here for free. Okay, I'll do that.
Mm, yeah.
Hey, you can do this. Okay, I'll do that. So yeah, there was a lot
And,
more decisions once I got out.
and you saw a lot of the world, presumably, as well.
Yeah, not as much as I wanted. Always when you're in, they always tease you with things like, "Hey, we're gonna do an Australia trip this time," and halfway through patrol, they're like, "I'm sorry, we're not doing Australia," and
Back
they
to
do that
Iraq.
every time. And so I saw a lot of Guam, I saw a lot of Japan, Saipan, Singapore, Abu Dhabi.
So still very interesting places and culturally
Yeah,
very different from the US.
yep, very much so, very much so.
So what did you do with that vacuum then? You've finished in the military. Was that a decision or is it just a time period that you were in and that's when you naturally come out?
It was a decision. I could have stayed longer. You can stay up to 30 years. As
Okay.
long as you're progressing and making rank. And for me, though, it was my next duty stay. I actually got a next duty station. They were going to put me back on a ballistic missile submarine out of Washington. I was living in Hawaii at the time, so I'd lived in Hawaii for 10 and a half years. And I was like, I really don't want to leave Hawaii unless I have to. And if I leave
Mm,
Hawaii, I just want to go back home. I want to go do something different. I didn't want to go back to Washington and kind of close that loop to where I started, because I started in
mm.
Washington on a ballistic missile submarine. And so I just said, it's time. It's time to get out. And I started looking for jobs and yeah, ended up in Minnesota. So
And do you see your children?
I do.
Sounds like you see at least two of them.
I see. Yeah. In fact, I've got when I married the first time, which was after I'd had my first kid. She had 3 kids already, so I had 3 stepkids. And so right now, the youngest, who when I got together with her was only a year old, he's here with me. He's out on a bike ride right now. So he still lives here in Washington, and he's visiting, and that's awesome. I 2 youngest kids live in Minnesota, and they're doing good. And I do get to see them once in a while. In fact, I'm going out in
Nice.
December to spend a couple weeks because my oldest, the one I had way, way back, she is having my first grandchild. She's having her first
Oh, that's
baby.
really exciting.
And it's going to be, so she married an Egyptian. She met a guy online through Instagram, talked to him for 3 years, and then flew to Egypt to meet him and liked him, and they got married. And so
Well,
she lives in Egypt normally. When
well,
she got
my
pregnant,
response to that would be Ana Beheb Masri, which is I love Egypt.
well, that's awesome. Yeah,
I
I got to
love
go there
my
for the wedding. There was a whole wedding on the Nile. What's that?
whereabouts.
The wedding was on the Nile, but they're in Giza. They're on the 15th floor of an apartment building where if you look out the balcony, you can see the tops of the pyramids. So they're on that side of Giza.
We tend to go to the Red Sea because we go diving. So my wife and I absolutely love it there. If I could live anywhere, that would be my choice. Yeah, I love it out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fabulous, and I love the language, and I try so hard to learn Arabic while I'm out there. I've copied lots of things parrot fashion, so I can trick some of them into thinking I can speak it passably, but it is only pidgin that I speak. But I can have a conversation, but
Oh,
it's
that's awesome.
yeah. But no, I love Egypt, and I love the Egyptian people. In the first year we went, they said to me, "Egyptian people have honey in the blood." And it's
Hmm.
so true. I've never heard anybody say that again, but I would love that as a tattoo.
Yeah.
I love Egypt. I love it. Yeah, that's a really
So, yeah,
so you're
I've
gonna
got
have a
Egyptian
grandchild that will be half Egyptian.
dual citizenship. So she flew back to the States. She wanted to have the baby in the States, but it'll have dual citizenship. So I
Nice.
my in-laws, my son-in-law's Egyptian. I talk to
Good food as
my
well.
in-laws once in a while. I love the food over there.
Yeah. Do you know if it's gonna be boy or girl?
Boy, yeah,
Nice.
his name, because do you know how they do the names over there?
No.
So they don't have a traditional surname. They have a first name, and then they use the 3 generations of the paternal side. So it's the boy's name will be Faris, and then his dad's name is Ahmed, and then his dad's name is Muhammad, and then his dad's name is Yasin. So it'll be Faris, Ahmed, Muhammad, Yasin. That's how they do their
Wow.
names.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Well, if they get to watch this, the first phrase that I learn, and it will make them laugh, is "Mea mea wala fresca mea," which is it's the equivalent in the UK as "winner winner chicken dinner." So, but it means 100% better than the government chicken because back in the day, the government used to hand out chicken as like a ration, and it
Yeah.
was always really skinny chickens and not very good. So, if you ask somebody how they feel, they say "Mea mea wala fresca mea," which is I feel 100% better than the government chicken.
Oh, that's awesome. I will.
But no, I love Arabic and I love Egyptian. So yeah, no, definitely, you're a lucky man.
Well, thank you.
And then before we get too heavy, I
Mhm.
also understand that you make a mean cheesecake.
Oh,
And if
yeah.
that's true, do you have a secret? Because I have a secret to a good cheesecake, and I could perhaps be willing to share it with you.
Well, here's what I know. I know that I've learned that leaving the cream cheese and the eggs out to get to room temperature is important. Like not doing anything chilled is important. I definitely separate the eggs. I do the yolks early in the mixing and the whites get folded in later. Over mixing is a problem with a cheesecake. So you really want to just incorporate the ingredients, not over mix. And as soon as it's incorporated, you're good. I think those are my biggest secrets. But then you get into the ratios, right? How many egg yolks? Like I do one extra egg yolk compared to an egg white. And yeah,
And what's your topping of choice?
I like them plain. I am a
Oh,
plain
do you?
cheesecake guy. I don't put, yeah. The only one that I've done that I like as much as a plain cheesecake is a key lime. So I've taken, in fact, I did a whole video on how I made my key lime cheesecake. I did it. It's on my YouTube channel.
I'm going to share it in the description.
It's I think it's titled I made a cheesecake I can't eat because I'm not doing dairy anymore as much. I've minimized how much dairy. It's one of the factors they found that when it doesn't necessarily cause prostate cancer, but they have done studies where if you do consume more than, and I forget the amount, 2 cups of dairy, say, per week, or when you do get it, it's more aggressive.
I see.
And so I've cut back on dairy.
Yeah. Well, my secret is in the UK, we obviously you call them cookies, but we call them biscuits. In the UK, we have 2 types of biscuit, which I like to use for the base. There's one biscuit called a hobnob, and a hobnob is like an oaty biscuit, which is like an oat and honey. I bet you can find them out there. But they're not just like a do you have digestives out there?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, like a digestive is like you might have they're sweet, but you'd have cheese or something like that. We tend to use a digestive base for a cheesecake. But I use hobnobs because they're a bit more crunchy and a bit sweeter. But I also use another biscuit you might not have, or you might have ginger nuts.
Huh.
And a ginger nut
Ooh.
is like a chewy ginger biscuit.
Oh, okay.
But if you mix that with the hobnobs and then the butter to make the cheesecake base, it
Yeah.
just is another crunchy, lovely, gingery element to any cheesecake, and it works amazing. So that's my cheat for cheesecakes.
Oh, that would be amazing.
In the words of the 90s DJ, it's all about the bass.
Yep. And I don't I don't get fancy with my base. I just do the graham crackers and crunch them up and little cinnamon allspice, and that's about it. Some butter.
Well, there you go. Now you've got a challenge ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
I think because you have flapjacks, but I think your flapjacks are not like our flapjack. I think is almost like a little pancake that you make. Is that right?
Yep.
Because a flapjack in the UK is oats with butter and golden syrup, and then cooked in the oven, and it's like a muesli bar almost.
Oh, wow.
Hobnobs are a bit like that, but they're not. They're a bit harder. They're less chewy. So that's a flapjack in the UK. We've talked about your history and your backstory. When I contacted you, you spoke about 2 11th of Augusts in your life being very important. Perhaps this is the point at which we should dive into that.
Yeah. So we talked about my Navy career, right? And I went to boot camp August 11th, 1988. And I really grew up in the Navy. And the Navy really, yeah, I grew up a pretty naive kid before that. And so the Navy really, really helped me turn me into a man, basically.
Mm.
Right. And I spent a whole career in there. And then I retired. And then 2023, I was having some, not even really symptoms, but just some uncomfortableness down there. Got an appointment scheduled. I had an appointment coming up as, hey, doctor, I want to talk about this at the appointment. And this just started the diagnosis process. And she said, yeah, it's probably an infection. You're too young. You're not going to, it can't be, it's probably nothing bad. And then I did antibiotics for 5 weeks, went back, got tested the 6th week, and my numbers. So there's a number, a PSA, and it's a prostate specific antigen. It's a blood test they do. And as that PSA, every man has a PSA level. But if it starts rising, there are things that can cause it to rise. Riding a bike causes it to rise. Intimate activities causes it to rise. Prostate cancer causes it to rise. So if it starts rising steadily instead of little jumps based on other activities, then there's concern. So it's an indicator that there might be prostate cancer. And that number went up. And she said, well, I still don't believe that there's any issues. And she says, I'll refer you to a urologist. And urologist said, you're young, it's not going to be an issue. And I just want to check your blood, do the blood test again, and did the blood test, and it went up again. And so it was rising, and it was rising fast. And so there was issues. And while all this is going on, I'd been living with a woman for a few years, and we had decided to get married. And so we'd set a date, and the date, this is going to be there's some very, very intimate material here for your viewers, just FYI. The week we got married, was just starting the diagnosis process, and I didn't know what was going on yet, but everything down there went dead, completely dead. Hasn't worked since, nothing. And it's because the cancer had gotten out. And what it does, once it gets out of the prostate, it attacks nerves, and it attacked all the nerves that allow function. And so, thankfully, she's still with me. She's still with me. We're together. She's going through this with me. And so this was February of 2023, and then March, April. By June, I had a biopsy from a urologist, and they came back saying I have intermediate unfavorable prostate cancer with a Gleason score of 7, 4+3. And so that's a bunch of technical stuff. But basically, it means it was metastatic. It was aggressive, but not super aggressive, but not the normal type of cancer. And it had already broken out. And so then I started the scans and found out it was in my spine. So it had got out, attacked the nerves down there, and then traveled along those nerve pathways, and it loves bones, and it loves the spine. And so it got into my L1 vertebrae on my spine. So all this is going on. And then they said, we're going to start you on treatment. Treatment for prostate cancer, if you catch it early, if you're doing PSA tests every year and you're tracking your number and it starts to rise a little bit and they do a biopsy and they're like, hey, you've got a little bit of cancer here, it is 100% curable through surgery or radiation. If you don't find out in time and it's metastasized and has moved outside of that, it's no longer curable. And so the treatment becomes more brutal. And the treatment, because prostate cancer is a hormone-sensitive cancer, the treatment is chemical castration. And so they put you on the drugs that make everything go dead and drop your testosterone, which we need for strength, for muscle mass, it affects how we think. It's such a huge part of our lives and a huge part of being a man. Goal of the treatment is to take that down to 0. And so August of 2023, I took my first castration pills to take away the manliness that I feel like I started gaining on August 11th of 88. That's a lot. I know that's a lot to unpack. Boom, here's all this.
It's a lot to unpack, but and is that how you felt about it?
I did. At that moment.
Do you still feel that way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I'm on this treatment for life. So I am permanently now chemically castrated until it stops working, because it will stop working. This treatment will stop working, and then it's on to the next thing. So, what's the next thing? Well, there's other treatments. There's Pluvicto, there's, the radioactive isotopes they can inject in you. There's immunotherapy, there's chemotherapy. And so eventually I'll be down that path. And right now I'm in a holding pattern, holding my breath, taking the chemical castration pills every morning and getting a shot every 3 months, hoping that just keeps working for as long as possible.
And I hope you don't mind me asking this, and you don't have to answer it, or even if you do answer it, if we don't have to include it. How has that affected your mental health?
It's been rough. Holy smokes. So last year, in fact, August, I thought I would get used to it as it went along, and it just got more and more brutal. And last year I went on antidepressants. I talked to my doctor, says, I got to talk to somebody. This isn't working. I'm not having good thoughts. I don't see me being able to continue this. And I said, I need to do something before I do something. And they put me on antidepressants for a while. And I did that for about 3 months. And then I got also worked with a therapist, developed some coping mechanisms, some coping skills, and that helped. And then I've got since come off the antidepressants, and I'm doing better. But I'll tell you, a lot of every day is masking and propping up to like I'm propping up with a lot of energy here, but I
Mm.
don't have the energy that you're seeing. This is coffee driven right now. This is coffee energy.
And any type of masking, as we've discussed in other episodes, is exhausting. But when
Yep.
you are in your scenario, when you don't have the batteries currently, your reserves are low as it is, do you find yourself getting exhausted much easier than you did?
Very, very much so. Just anything. Going to check the mail is exhausting. I'm like, "Ugh, okay, I need to rest and just recover from that. I've lost most of my or a lot of my muscle mass. Because with that testosterone, you lose your muscle, and I
Mm.
put on a lot of weight that's replaced all that muscle. So now I'm carrying around more weight, and everything's just exhausting. So
And how do
anytime
you
I go
manage
to
that? Can you manage that? Are you comfortable managing that with humor, or is humor a mask as well? Can you do the I've lost all this weight, but my handbag is bigger. Can you do that,
I
or is that
can,
actually
yeah.
upsetting?
No, I'm good with humor. I'm good with the sarcasm, the humor, the pointing at it and making fun of it and turning it into something light. But yeah, that
That
helps.
makes you more comfortable.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
like when I got diagnosed with cancer, one of the first times I told somebody at work, I was a supervisor of initial license training, and there was a guy that had been trying to get a supervisor position, and I swung by his office, and I hadn't told anybody yet at work. And I was like, "Hey, Rob, yeah, good news." He said, "What?" I was like, "There's a supervisor position going to open up in a few years." He said, "Oh," he said, "Why?" I said, "I've got cancer," and I walked away. And he came and found me. He's like, "That was a scary funny." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "But you don't, right?" I was like, "No, I do." And then he didn't know what to think about it.
Yeah, that's hard.
That's
You
I
know,
regret doing it that way now, but
yeah, but you were probably a bit angry as well, and I think transatlantically, men in particular, but all of us, we manage our emotions and our negatives with humor, and I think it's a defense mechanism, but I also think it does cheer you up a bit. But sometimes I think it's actually because you're angry. I think
yeah.
that it I don't know. I don't know a lot about it, but certainly I know I've masked with humor all of my life to the point where I think it's made me quite funny, but because I've got it wrong so many times, I've said something as an attempt to be funny and actually upset everybody in the room. But
Those are the best.
well, they are looking back, they're not at the time.
A lot at the time.
But yeah, and because if it were my friends, my close friends, I would want them to be comfortable joking about it because that would help me through. But
Yeah.
it's sometimes different when it's not a friend, isn't it? It can actually hurt then.
Yeah.
So just going back a bit, because currently we are creating something of a horror story. Um,
Yeah.
what I don't want to do, and I think it goes against everything that you're doing, is put men off. Because
Right.
this is kind of how we got where we are in the first place. I think that's right. You put it off, didn't you? And perhaps it could have been dealt with earlier. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I man, if I had a time machine, like what I'm angry about is in 2017, I went to my doctor and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to have you do this PSA test." And I had no idea what it was. And he didn't explain what it was. And my number came back just a little above 1. And he's like, "Huh." And he sent me to get a scan of some kind, but didn't explain why. There was no dialogue about what was going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand, and I didn't ask questions. I was still very much in the military mindset. This is, 2017. I've only been out 8 years, and I hadn't
And you're a man.
only, yeah,
Men are not very good at that, are they?
yep, nope, man. And so I didn't. there was no discussion about, hey, I wish I'd have asked questions like, are you concerned about this? If you are, why? If you're not, why did I go get scans? Is there something I need to do? Do I need to monitor this? Do I need to do anything with this? Because it went from 2017, I didn't get another PSA test till 2023. And by that time, the cancer had advanced, it had metastasized, it's no longer curable.
You see, I really don't like I wish, but it's very hard for you not to say those things because I wish there's nothing we can do about them, is there? And
Yep.
they become painful in this scenario. Having said all of that, I think in this situation, your I wishes are actually advice to men out there, aren't they?
That's what,
That's
yeah.
what you're saying.
Yep. So when I realized what had happened, by the time I'd realized everything that had happened, where I was, what could have been, I had started my radiation treatment. So I got my first dose of radiation on August 30th of 2023. And I got done with that radiation, and that was kind of the where everything stopped being unreal and everything became very, very, very heavy and real. I was like, I just got dosed with radiation because I have cancer. And I sat down in front of my camera and I started talking about what I knew, what had happened, and I called it an episode 1. And I said, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to share this information so that other men learn, before they're in my situation.
Mm,
Uh, get your PSA checked every year. Once you're about 45 years old, you didn't used to be that they would recommend it till you're 60, 65, 70. But
mm.
more and more men are getting prostate cancer younger. And so they've recently lowered that recommendation down to 45. So if you're and somebody is 46, what's your PSA?
Yeah,
What's your PSA number?
I've got hang on a minute. I've got about 27 days to go till I'm 46, so I best enjoy it. Can I also clarify? And I know that it might be different in the US to the UK. I think one of the big things that put men off going to have a test is that, let's be blunt, they fear somebody sticking a finger up their ass, and actually, it's a blood test, right?
It's a blood test. Now they what you're talking about is what they call the digital rectal exam, digital rectal exam. And they don't do that as much anymore. Now they're doing the PSA test. And if the PSA test shows any concern, then they do an MRI. And it's an MRI where they're finding, okay, we have some suspicious nodules here. And then they'll do a biopsy. So but I'll tell you, going through this, the DRE, the digital rectal exam, was the least embarrassing part of all of this.
Yeah. And I think when you get to the point, or if you get to the point where that's necessary, you'll be bloody glad to have it, I would have thought.
Yep.
It's the blood, and that's the thing. That's the message that I think perhaps no government, no medical experts, no doctors get out enough, is that to go and have a test, it's a blood test. It's not an invasive procedure.
That's
And if it
correct.
gets to the point where it is an invasive procedure, you want it.
Yep. Yep. You will be glad you have had it done. Yep. And they do it, and they don't even do that as much anymore. It's the blood test and then an MRI.
Exactly. So anybody listening, even if you are never going to have that done, please tell every man that you know that it's a bloody blood test and nothing more than that to start with. Get yourself to the doctors and ask for one yesterday, because it's just, there's two things that can happen. You come away fine or you go for more investigation.
More
But
diagnostic.
either way, yeah, the earlier you catch this, it's about the most curable or the most dealable with cancers, I think, isn't it?
If you catch it early, it is.
I think something like 90% of men who pass away die with or having had it at some point as well, don't they? Because it tends to go with older age, and that's where my admiration for you and your inspiration to me exists, because you've already mentioned that you clearly have struggled with your mental health, but your gut reaction to this has been, I've got to stop other people ending up in this situation.
Yeah.
And
That
that's
was
magical.
I don't know, it was what I had to do. Like, I didn't put in much thought into it or anything. I came home and I just was kinda stunned as the reality settled in, and I just sat down in front of the camera and just started talking about it.
You've talked about your mental health. How did that marry up with that? And what time-wise,
Oh,
you know?
it helps. So
Yeah.
for me, for a long t especially all those early episodes, I think I'm on, I've got I don't even know how many videos up now, but 38 official episodes. And those early ones, I was doing for me being able to talk about it with somebody, and I didn't have a somebody to talk about it with
Mm.
necessarily. I mean, I had my wife, but I needed to talk openly with other men about this, and I
Yeah.
didn't have
Yeah.
that. And so this was my pathway to. I invented my own support group, basically.
I would be really interested, and again, we talked at the beginning of this before we started to record about elements of your videos that I've found interesting and elements of the people that I've interviewed previously whose videos I've found interesting. I think it would be very interesting, although you might not be comfortable with it, interviewing your wife.
Well,
Y-
I would be okay with that. She won't.
Yeah.
I can't get her on but yeah,
Even if you couldn't do your wife, speaking to somebody's partner about the impact and the difficulties, but also the the value of supporting somebody and why we do it. I mean, she clearly loves you dearly, and that's wonderful, and you clearly love her dearly. And I've spoken quite a bit about this in the past, but the menopause is probably a similar thing for me, in that my wife, I adore my wife, and when we were young, when we first got together, we made a pact that if we ever went out and got drunk, the next day, rather than saying, "You idiot, you went out and got drunk and you can deal with your own hangover," we said, "We'll look after each other." Because we didn't do it very often, and neither of us did it so regularly that it was unfair. And it's just the same. If you help somebody or not help them, it's the same reaction because then you help them back. But my love for my wife is greater now than it ever was 25 years ago. So now she's going through the menopause. I want to help her
mm,
with that as well. I don't
yeah,
hold that. So many men hold it against their wives that they're going through a difficult period and they've got. I mean, if you look at the list of things that go alongside menopause, I wouldn't want one of them, never mind all of them, for like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of my life.
yeah,
So
and
why can't we just help them in the same way that in your scenario, you're going through a difficult period, and I would imagine she helps you a great deal. And
yep,
why can't we just do that? I don't understand it.
yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating because I do come across men who are alone. I come across men whose wives leave them when they got cancer. And to be fair, there was a study done. So if you take men and women and you say, okay, they're going to get cancer, men are more likely to leave women when women get cancer, but they still both leave. But men are bigger jerks generally.
Yeah.
But which sucks. But yeah, why not help out? And with the menopause, a lot of those symptoms so menopause is drop in hormone levels. And that drop in hormone levels causes hot flashes, it causes fatigue, it causes memory problems, it causes brain fog, it causes all those things, which is the treatment I'm on drops the hormone levels, which causes the brain fog, which causes the hot flashes. So it's you know, it's kinda getting to the same thing, different paths. So I
Yeah.
understand.
You understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
wow.
And I would imagine you're very grateful for her help in those
Yes.
scenarios.
Yeah, and I like the idea of talking, with the spouses or getting the spouses on here to talk with each other, because I didn't though I got prostate cancer, really, we got prostate cancer.
Yeah.
We're both living with the consequences of this, and it's challenging. It changed her
Yeah.
life at least as much as it changed mine.
And does she have a support mechanism away from you? 'Cause no, I'm not suggesting that you're a problem, but I think it's important in the same way that you have one in doing these things and probably have friends and family that, does she have something that she can escape to as well?
Yeah, yeah, she's got a good family. She's got nieces and stuff that she keeps, and her daughter lives close by.
Mm.
So yeah, she
Everyone keeps
does.
tabs on everybody
Yep.
because it's vital, what's the subject of mental health? How is that approached in America? Is it as something that's awakening or is it still quite backwards?
My perspective is I'm gonna say quite backwards because there's the everything in America is just so money driven, right? It's what can they get money out of you for? And so I don't feel like some of the treatments, the therapies, the goals are to actually try and help or fix. I feel like oftentimes it's just let's have a session and talk, and I'll collect my $230 for this hour and then, you know, I don't know. But I'm a little jaded on that. So it may not be that way. And not everybody's the same, and not every therapist and psychologist is the same. So
And I think America, whilst it's one big country, I think there are massive differences in area as to how different people perceive things. I think LA is considered far more open-minded than, say, the South, isn't it? Like Florida,
yeah.
where I think it's quite black and white down there and whatever. But so do you think there's quite a macho bullshit still going along with mental health in America? Do you think there's a lot of men that perhaps don't get help that maybe could do with it?
Yeah, like I know a man right now who absolutely you can see it on his face, you can hear it in his voice. You know he needs help. He needs to talk to somebody, but he has this idea that he shouldn't do it because that's not what men do, and it's tough getting through that with somebody. Yeah, it's seen as a weakness. I'm not that weak. I'm okay. I mean, I'm not doing okay, but I'm more okay than that. I'm like, no, just talk to somebody.
And do you think with the treatment that you've been going through, there will be men out there who are choosing not to take the treatment because of the sort of impact that's had on you? Do you think that's happening?
Well, I interviewed a man who chose not to go through the hormone therapy, and so he's trying other things. And there's a lot of stuff out there on the internet about do this. Like the most recent episode I did, Richard pointed out, it's not true that you can just eat tomatoes and be cancer free, right?
Yeah. If you whisk your eggs backwards, you'll be cancer free.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, is there supplementary stuff you can do? Yeah, exercise and diet and what you eat all play a role, but you're not going to cure your cancer that way. And he pursued those other ways. He pursued no, I think I can. And he wasn't doing well. He did end up getting some radiation. He flew to Germany to get some radiation. And yeah, I've tried keeping in touch with him. I'm hoping he's doing well, but I'm scared for him because the effective treatment, the one that actually would have worked, he wasn't willing to do because it would have taken away his muscle mass.
Because of the stigma that sort of comes with that.
Well, and the physical, the actual,
Yeah.
yeah, the stigma of losing his muscle mass because his whole life has been based on that, on who he was
Gosh, yeah.
physically, because he's a popular person.
Yeah. That's really, really sad, isn't it? And I think from one of the things that I've come across a lot is that I think pride and shame are two of the biggest drivers in the decisions we make, and I think usually they lead to negative decisions if you can't overcome them.
That's a
Um,
fact.
yeah, and I find that really sad when you're looking in on it. Have you had feedback from your podcast that makes it worth doing for you?
Yeah, holy smokes, so much feedback. The comments I get, I've got regular followers, people that watch, and sometimes it's the wives that show the men, like Jeff, a good friend. It was his wife's like, "Hey, when he got diagnosed, you got to watch this guy's videos." And then we connected through there, and then we've done a video, and he checks in with me, and I check in with him, and there's just such a strong amount of support from all these friends, these people that I've met in this network, this community that we've built together. I mean, it started with me uploading a video, but this network has slowly grown. Harry from Australia was an early commenter on my videos, and he runs a support group in Australia, and he's doing well, and he provides positive information. He was able to stop doing the hormone therapy, and he's recovering his testosterone. So he was able to push his cancer back into remission and is able to regain some quality of life, and he shares that information. So throughout the comments, you can see people talking about, here's my experience, here's my experience, here's my experience. And once in a while you get that here's a really positive experience. So you can talk about that and share that with other men. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback that these are helping, and that's what keeps me going. The videos are helping people.
And tell me how it feels when you get those.
It helps me feel good. It helps, worst case scenario. I think about what happens to me in the worst case scenario. I leave the world here in 3 to 7 years. What did I do with this time when I got this information? Did I do something good with it? Or did I just sit back and cry about it the whole time? And this is reinforcing that I'm hopefully doing something good with it. And that's what I'm hearing, that I'm doing something good with it. I've come across men that say, "Hey, this video you did saved my life. This turned me around." Like, there's a guy that got a PSA test because a friend that I used to work with in Minnesota said, "Hey, you told me you had a high PSA. Watch this video." The guy was like, "Oh, okay," because he didn't think he had anything to be concerned about. And he went and got another PSA test, and they went and got another PSA test that was on the rise. And he got with the doctor, got with the urologist, got the surgery, and he's doing well. I did a trip when I went back to Minnesota, and my friend is like, "Hey, this guy wants to meet you." And so we went over to his house and chatted for a little while. And he said, "Yeah," he said, none of this would have happened. I would have been in a worse situation if I hadn't watched your video." That that right there, if it's only that one person with that one thing, then this is all worth it.
Yeah. What a gift. What a gift that you've given, but what a gift to receive. And
Yep.
I would imagine for every one person that's told you that, there's probably another 10 that benefited just as well from it.
I hope so.
What a magical, magical gift that you are giving people. And because it's bigger than just saving lives for me, it's opening that box to talk about it. Because
Yeah.
it's not just, you're not just in it to save lives, and that's obviously the pinnacle and the wonderful thing. If you can make, it's almost nicer that you can make a difficult life better
Yep.
every day.
Yep. And I want to normalize men talking about this. We see ads for breast cancer awareness. We get all the breast cancer awareness runs and fundraisers and commercials. And that's good. That's great. Why has the stigma of men not wanting to talk about it propagated to the point where there's not prostate cancer awareness drives and prostate cancer awareness commercials and prostate cancer discussions, and there's no public service announcements to saying, "Hey, men, get your PSA checked," you know?
Yeah.
And I want that to change. I want to be, if men see me comfortable talking about it, maybe they'll be more comfortable talking about it.
But I do believe hugely that that obstacle of it's just a blood test is just not told enough,
Yeah,
because
that's very
I
true.
genuinely think that men fear being compromised. Yeah.
Yep.
And But when the time comes, you want that. But, it doesn't come straight away. It's just a blood test. It's just a blood test. In fact,
Yep.
I think the thumbnail on this video will just be, "It's just a blood test."
Yep, I like that.
But
And I'll be
but
checking
you
in with you. I'll be checking in to see what your PSA is.
Yeah, no, I already know that, so I'm gonna have to deal with that. And rightly so. Rightly so. I've got somebody else checking me that I'm doing my exercise at the moment as well because I haven't been doing that. So, um,
Same.
what 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 a gift um, that you're giving, and what. Thank you very much for taking the time to just speak to me because I think what you're doing is breathtaking. Oh, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
You like cycling,
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
and do you cycle now?
I have recently. I've done maybe 4 rides in the last 2 or 3 months, so not a lot.
Okay. And you have a preference for a British seat,
I
I
do.
think, called a Brooks seat.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
you were going to adapt it in such a way that it would allow your cycling to be more comfortable.
Yep. I took a Brooks saddle, that expensive leather Brooks saddle, and I drilled 2 holes in it, and I cut between the holes to connect them, and I've got a spot for my prostate area, the perineum, to sit where it's not get any pressure, and yeah,
Did it make a difference?
it does. It made a huge difference. I love it.
That
It's
is
so much more
brilliant.
comfortable now, and I've always loved the Brooks saddles, and I've had one since I can't. When would the first time have been? 20 or 2005 maybe, when I got my first one? And I've really only had 2 because they last so long.
The other thing that you mentioned is, and I presume this is with your old job, about faking it.
Mhm.
Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, when you're in a professional work environment, it's a business, and business isn't interested in how you feel or how you're doing today or, "Hey, you look like you're having a rough one today. Why don't you go just sit this one out," right? That's not what it's like. And so you have to just prop up. You have to mask. You have to fake it to get through, and that challenges you internally because you realize you're not sharing how you feel. You're not talking about. You're not being real with your feelings, and that destroys us a little bit inside when we do that. And so that professional environment can be rough. I'm switching jobs to gain a little quality of life. I think the academia world will be a little more open to, hey, you know, I wanted to show up 100% today and I'm just not there. So I think there's room for that. I think that they're more open to that. They're more understanding. And yeah, so I'm switching jobs. I'm going to be the assistant professor and director of nuclear technology.
And that sounds brilliant. I'm really pleased because that will be. I just hope it helps you sleep better, and I would imagine that when you are deep into faking it like that, on particularly during periods of difficult times, that will coincide with your depression,
Mm.
spiking.
Yeah.
It's a sort of toxic content, and in your scenario, I don't know if there's much science behind this. You might even know, but you generally find that people who approach the scenarios like the one you're in more positively tend to seemingly do better and stay healthier for longer than those who crumble. And that's a shame. And that doesn't mean it's wrong to crumble because I can't say that I wouldn't. I may do. But I do think when you've got all those challenges on the side, just from work and faking it and masking it and all those kinds, they can't help with your suppressing of the ailments that you're currently dealing with. They must that negative sort of poison in your blood and in your mind must affect it.
Mindset is huge. Mindset is a huge part of our physical reality, right? How we feel about ourselves, how we think about ourselves makes a difference on how our body reacts. If
Mm,
we give up mentally, then our body gets the signal to not try. If
mm.
we stay positive, then our body says, "Okay, oh no, we're trying to fix this. All right, keep going, guys. Keep going." Yeah. Having the positive mindset is hugely important.
And as you said, you I don't think you can eat your way out of cancer. I don't think you can think your way out of cancer, but I think when you feel shit, you eat chips, or
Yep.
when you feel crap, you don't want a salad, you don't want to eat healthily. And when you're not really feeling well, you don't want to go in the gym, you don't want to go for a walk, and it just piles on and piles on and piles on. And that's bad when you're struggling with depression, but when you're struggling with a physical ailment that's directly affected by that, even worse. What a great thing you've done to get out of that situation.
It's about probability and risk, right? I'm obese. I'm a big guy and
Mm.
6'3". I might have you though. I'm 6'3". I don't, you have to convert this to stones, but I'm 370 pounds now.
Oh no, you
And
you are beating me there, yeah.
yeah, it's frustrating because I'm on drugs that make me gain weight, and fighting that drug induced weight gain is rough. But so that's a risk factor. So there's a risk associated with cancer dealing with obesity, and then food, how your diet, that's a risk factor, and then how much sunlight you're getting put you in it. There's if you're not getting sunlight, that's a risk factor. So all these risk factors stack up, and then eventually it's just probability. It's just you know you're even the person that's getting the sunlight, skinny, eating healthy, running all the time, they can still get cancer. Right? It doesn't
Yeah.
eliminate the chance. But yeah, you don't wanna give it as more chances than you have to.
I saw something recently and it related to diabetes, and it was somebody with diabetes who has a positive attitude towards diabetes is less likely to fall seriously ill from diabetes than somebody who doesn't have diabetes, who you're
Yeah.
more likely to have a serious illness caused by diabetes for the worry of it. And that just tells you everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you see that with cancer, you see that with, all kinds of things. If you have a negative perspective on it, you are more likely to experience the negative effects.
Mm. Yeah, it's do think the PMA or whatever they call it, positive mental attitude. It's a lot to be said for it, but you got to dig deep for it sometimes.
Yeah, and, when you're dealing with chemical treatment that makes you that takes away all these abilities that you used to have, that makes it even tougher. But
Yeah,
it's still important that we do it. It's still important that, it's a sunny day. I'm going to go sit out on the back patio. I'm just going to sit there in the sun for a little while and
nice.
think about good things because that it will help build positivity. That will help, drag me up out of the negative space.
Have you been able to indulge in your hobbies? Because I know you've got quite a few hobbies. You're a magician, right?
Yeah, do
Um,
tricks and
and your
get
leather
tricks and stuff.
leather work and stuff. Can you do that in your current position? Because I know that sometimes, certainly with depression, when I'm struggling with depression, I cannot really focus on my hobbies.
I had lost interest in just about everything for a really long time, and I'm only just now trying to get back into a few of them. So I'm doing leather work. I don't know, I don't have it here to hold up and show you, but over there in the corner are some seats that a friend wants covered in leather. So I'm
Nice.
trying that. I haven't made any bags or wallets lately, but yeah, I'm trying to get back into that. I'm trying to, and I'm getting back into rockets. I don't think that was one I mentioned to you. I
No,
build
that wasn't.
rockets.
That's cool. Like the little rockets that go.
When you say little rockets, one sec.
Well, oh my god!
So I can't even get this thing on camera.
Wow.
It's almost 8 feet tall. It's 3 inches short of 8 feet tall. So not the little rockets. I do some little ones too.
What will that achieve in
In height, oh, that'll easily hit like 6,000 feet. I generally try to hit 4 to 6,000 feet is my goal.
and can you
This one.
recover most of that?
Oh yeah, I've launched this one like 5 or 6 times.
Wow.
And my son that's here, he's like, hey, let's do this. So we're building a rocket together. We're building a smaller one, but
Oh, that's cool.
it's about ready to paint. So yeah, we're trying. I'm trying to get back into stuff. Having support, having my son here, he lives about 3.5 hours away. So he lives, when I say close, like saying somebody lives close in the United States is way different than the UK, right? Close is 3 hours away.
Yeah.
And so he comes over for the weekends once in a while and we do stuff together. And that helps drive me. That's like, oh, okay. I want to do this with my son. I want to do things
Yeah.
and show him things. And yeah,
And you look
that helps.
forward to that. That's
I
something
look
to.
forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My daughters are into art and they send me pictures that they do and creations they make. And that's pretty cool. I look forward to those things.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't know. I think being unwell, whether it's in your head or whether it's physical or both, I think it drains your attention. I think it drains your ability to have an attention, doesn't it? And when you're better, you can focus a little bit more. And when you're not so much, because I'm all right at the minute and I paint miniatures. So, and that's a childhood thing. But I decided, one of the things I established was I got great joy from doing things as a child, and I didn't do them anymore, and I didn't have the hobby. So why not just go back to the hobby that I had as a child? So that's
Heck
what I
yeah.
do, and I love it.
Heck yeah. That's good.
Board game night every Tuesday night for me.
Oh, nice.
So, well, I'm really grateful for you joining us. I don't really have any words, really, just to say what a great guy you are and what you're doing is great. I hope
Well,
we
you
do
as
have a
well.
friendship now.
Having this platform where you are sharing people's stories is very similar to what I'm doing, right? I think it helps to not feel alone. People will
Mm.
see something, go through a conversation on one of these videos and be like, wow, that resonates with me. I understand that.
Mm.
And that helps them feel not alone. And you are providing that on a huge amount of perspectives with a huge amount of experiences. And your exploration into mental health is really, really, really good.
I I just want people to realize that the value of being kind is huge, and that doesn't matter what the problem is. But when you see somebody walking down the street, they might walk with a limp, they might have a funny haircut, they might dress unusually, or they might just not even attract your eye at all. But they could just be a, a super interesting person, and not to miss out on those opportunities of just saying good morning to somebody or hi, or if the opportunity to have a chat with somebody, you could just make their day by having a chat, or they could make yours. And
Yeah.
that's all. That's what, for me, that's what humanity is about. We are here, humankind. That word at the end, humankind. We're not human mean or human horrible. It's humankind.
I love that.
And I believe very strongly that we should be just more kind to one another and listen, and and what you're doing is the ultimate kindness for me. It's the ultimate kindness, and yeah, I'd like to stay in touch, and like I said, I can't remember whether we recorded it or not, but at the beginning of these things, so far everybody I've contacted, I've made friends with, and in fact, next week I'm going to a festival, and at least 3 of the people that I've interviewed are going to be there. It's like 5 hours drive away,
That's
but
awesome.
So hopefully I'll have some photographs since the interviews where I'll be able to see them and do a video, but it's probably a bit far for you. But yeah, so that'll be nice. So I'll be able to share some bits and bobs of meeting those guys. But everybody I speak to on here is just an inspiration. I'm basically just nosy and they tell me really interesting things.
That's awesome.
I'm just and I'm not even
That's awesome.
professionally nosy. I'm just nosy for a hobby.
It's a hobby. Oh, that's perfect. That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I don't think I have anything more to ask you, but I would like to ask you if you've got anything you'd like to share and your socials, if you could.
Yeah. So if you're interested in the leather work, I'm on Instagram as at Anchored Leather. I haven't done but warning, I haven't done a lot with it lately. And then my channel is Prostate Cancer: The Road to Recovery. It's prostatecancertrtr on YouTube. And if you are a male that's 45 or older, get your PSA checked. It's a blood test and track it. Get it tested every year and track that number. There's men that have naturally high numbers. As long as it's not going up, you're fine. But if it starts going up, get a referral to a urologist.
And if you catch it early, it's absolutely manageable.
Yep, very much so.
Mm.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. Please keep in touch. And I will share some photos with you from when I meet these people next week. But also, I'll share your cheesecake recipe on the.
Awesome.
And you have to share this with your daughter and son-in-law as well to see how awful my Arabic is.
Will do.
What is it? What is it? أنا ما بتكلمش عربية أنا إنجليزي. That means I don't speak Arabic because I'm English.
Which that's just got to stun them like, well, but you just did.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
Brilliant.
awesome.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to meet you. And if you ever fancy getting me on for your, I mean, I know I don't have anything wrong with me currently, but I'm more than happy to come and have a chat with you and just spread the word because the more we do, the more we do.
Yeah. And I love talking with you. This is fantastic. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. This is awesome.
More transatlantic chats we need. That's the
Heck
future.
yeah.
Thanks, mate. Enjoy the sunshine. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Jason, thank you for sharing your story with such honesty and courage. For everyone listening or watching, please take Jason's message seriously. If you're over 40, get your PSA checked. Early detection saves lives. It's just a blood test. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps these stories reach the people who need them most. And this one is really one of those. Don't forget, if you'd like to hear more stories, humour, and a fresh look at mental health, my book, The Piety Man's Guide to a Healthy Mind, is now available on Amazon, with 10% of profits going to charity. And also, if you contact me at pietyman@outlook.com, I can arrange to send one out to you signed. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, keep chewing the crust.